Hey guys, Bloodsorrow here, aka Ravedge, and today's video is going to be the first of my Intro to Feral PvP guides. In this video, I'm going to be covering an in-depth look at the Feral Druid talents, what you might want to use overall, and then certain situational talents. This video is going to have a lot of information, so I'm going to try and do it really fast and then cover more in-depth details about the talents that are more inclined to be used as a Feral. So, without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the vid! Alright guys, as stated at the beginning of this vid, I'm going to go ahead and cover all the talents. I'll do most of them pretty quickly, and then I will go over which ones I'm using in that exact tier and why, and then certain situational uses for the other ones. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, for the level 15 tier, this is kind of like a mobility tier for us, kind of like Windwalkers. The first one you have is Feline Swiftness, which increases your movement speed by 15%. It's just a passive 15% movement speed increase, which that could be kind of good, but at the same time, Feral, you've got a lot of mobility as is, and there's just so much more that's, in my mind, better. And I would put this as more of a PvE type talent, like maybe a Resto Druid would want to use it just so you're moving quicker in the dungeons or raids or whatnot. But yeah, I don't see much of a use for Feline Swiftness with that, because as well if, what is it, right there, I'm getting enchanted 140 agility and then minor move speed on my boots, so I am getting a speed boost already, so I don't know if it would be really worth just an extra 15%. The next talent is Displacer Beast, which is an instant 30-second cooldown, and it teleports the druid up to 20 yards forward, activate cat form, and increase movement speed by 50% for 4 seconds. Now, this is a pretty good talent for like Restos and I believe Boomkins, because it's kind of like a blink. Yeah, you used to stealth, but they went ahead and changed it because it was way too strong originally. Like, you would just go across stealth and for a second or two breaking people's targets, focus targets, whatnot, and then come right out from dots or whatnot and heal yourself back to full before they knew what they could do. However, this being a 30-second cooldown, I don't really think is that good for Feral, because Wild Charge has much more perks to it, and I'll go ahead and cover that now. Wild Charge is a 15-second cooldown, and this is what I'm currently using for Feral. 5 to 25 yard range, instant, and then it grants a different ability depending on the form you're in. If I am non-shapeshifted, meaning if I'm out of form, it will teleport me towards an ally's position. So I wonder if it'll work on a guard. Yep, see? So it's kind of like your own version of Life Grip to pull yourself that way, which can be kind of cool, but obviously being Feral, you're going to most likely be in a form. The next one is Bear Form, which then charges to an enemy and immobilizes them for 4 seconds. That is something that I don't see enough Ferals using to their advantage, and I feel that I even need to work on it more. So, in a nutshell, when you go in Bear Form, and I Feral Charge, this guy gets an immobilized effect on him for 4 seconds. So, a 4-second root. Now, for classes that like to kite you a lot, like a hunter or a mage, it's really good to do that to a mage, because sometimes they'll blink out of it, you know, and you might be able to close the gap with a skull bash or whatnot to get back on the target. But the root is something that is really good, especially against like warriors, especially. You root them in place and run LOS, it's pretty good. Like, really, really good, actually. Just a lot of people don't use it. So most people just like panic when someone gets away from them and uses a, because they're most likely in cat form, will use a cat form charge to close the distance. Cat form, when you're in the cat form for the wild charge, is leap behind a target and dazing them for 3 seconds. This is good for using in openers if someone's got a flare or death and decay, because you can actually, if you're quick enough, you can hit your bind to jump forward and use your then pounce or however you want to open up on them before you actually get brought out of stealth. So you can actually do quite a bit with this, and that's just talking in the stealth aspect. If you are out of stealth, it's a great gap closer. You know, if you can get a mage to blink before you've used your wild charge, you're going to be at a much greater advantage of getting a lot of damage into them. So that's going to cover the level 15 tier. The level 30 tier is kind of like our self-survivability, like heals and whatnot. And the first one we're talking about, and this is the one I'm using, is Nature Swiftness. Nature Swiftness is nothing new to PvP. It's an instant buff, 1 minute cooldown. When activated, my next Cyclone, Root, Healing Touch, Hibernate, Nourish, Rebirth, or Regrowth becomes instant, free, and castable in all forms. The healing and duration of the spell is increased by 50%. This is something that's often overlooked. Most people save this for a heal on themselves. Like, it's macro to my big heal that's just going to heal for a crap ton. But this is also a separate bind because if you read that carefully, you're going to get a longer duration spell. Now, that's good for a longer cyclone, longer root, but mainly a longer cyclone. A lot of people underestimate how long it will actually last. Cyclone itself right now lasts for 6 seconds, but if I go ahead and do, I wonder if I can even cyclone this target. Let's just see. No, didn't think so. Yeah, but you can have a 8-second cyclone in arena, which is pretty amazing because it's the longest that CC can last for. So using Nature's Swiftness for a cyclone isn't a bad idea, or a healing touch, or anything, because it's gonna improve the healing by 50%. It's gonna improve the duration of it all, and it is a pretty short cooldown. It is only 1 minute. So oftentimes when I take a lot of damage, my big heal will sometimes crit me enough where I gain full health back. Like there, 257,000 I'm missing. Pop my big heal, I just healed for 212k. So that is a huge heal, and it's only a minute cooldown, so that'll be up in a minute. However, the cooldown I did pop with it, Heart of the Wild, is a 6 minute. But yeah, that's Nature's Swiftness. Some druids I've heard mentioned about using it before, but I don't think anyone really picks that over Nature's Swiftness is Renewal. It just instantly heals the druid for 30% of your maximum health, usable in all shapeshift forms, a 2 minute cooldown. Now, I think if it was a shorter cooldown, it might be more appealing, but why have that when you could do a Nature's Swiftness with a minute cooldown and heal yourself for probably 30% of your health, and if it crits, possibly more. The last one is Cenarian Ward. 40-yard range, 30-second cooldown, protects the target or friendly target, causing any damage to taken to heal the target for 57,000 every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. Gaining the healing effect consumes the Cenarian Ward, usable in all shapeshift forms, lasts 30 seconds. So it can last, the buff can last as long as the cooldown is, but once again, CC is one of a Feral's, or actually a Druid's, not just Feral's, strongest points, and none of these are actually able to also not only heal, but then buff your CC as well. Nature's Swiftness is, and it is a short cooldown. Not as much as 30 seconds, but it's pretty good, sitting at a minute. Alright, the level 45 tier is kind of like the fun talents in my mind. You got a bunch of them and a bunch of different uses. First one is Fairy Swarm. Grants an improved version of the Fairy Fire. It also reduces the target's movement speed by 50% for 15 seconds. This is a cool spell because, you know, it is a slow, but at the same time, when you're using certain spells on a Feral, you're already getting a slow up on them, Infected Wounds, which is slowing them by 50%. So there's not really a need for Fairy Swarm. Maybe a Boomkin might want to use it if they're kiting, but I think Mass Entanglement or Typhoon would be much better to use. Next one I want to talk about is Mass Entanglement. 30-yard range, instant, 30-second cooldown. Roots your target in place for 20 seconds and spreads to additional nearby enemies. Affects 5 total targets. Damage caused may interrupt the effect, usable in all shapeshift forms. So it's like an AoE root, plain and simple. This is the one that I feel might have the second possible use, but I still think Typhoon is better because of a number of reasons. But mainly, I think this could be good against like some heavy, you know, like a Thug Cleave or something like that with a lot of physical damage that needs to stick to a target. Because if you get that on him and then they do catch up to your healer, he most likely has gotten a cooldown up or whatnot. So this is a good spell. It has its perks, but Typhoon, I feel, has more perks. So what is Typhoon? Typhoon, if you know anything about Boomkins and Druids back in the day, you are going to know what Typhoon is. It summons a violent typhoon that strikes the targets in front of the caster within 30 yards, knocking them back and dazing them for 6 seconds. Usable in all shapeshift forms, 30-second cooldown. So what does Typhoon look like? Number one, it's just that. And it's so fun knocking people off of BGs. You know, knocking someone off of LM or going in the middle of Eye of the Storm and knocking 3-4 people off. So that's like one of the coolest parts about it. But the reason I like this the most for Feral is because when a healer is like right next to me and they pop a like Aura Mastery where they're immune to being interrupted, and say my stun is on cooldown or whatnot, they will go ahead and cast a heal knowing that I can't interrupt them, but a lot of them aren't expecting me for me to turn real fast, Typhoon, and go back to my target just to knock them back and stop that cast. Because then by then, usually it's my stun is up in a second or two, and I can just turn and then stun them, or I have a cyclone ready, etc. Stuff like that. So that's why I pick Typhoon. Plus, it's way too fun to pass up in BG. So I would say, as in orders of usefulness and importance, Typhoon, Mass Entanglement, then Fairy Swarm. All right, the next tier is kind of like a damage booster. The first one is Soul of the Forest, which has different benefits for each one, but the Feral one is your finishing moves grant you 4 energy per combo point. It's kind of good, but I would put that more as maybe a PvE talent, because that's more about using combo points and keeping your energy up and etc. You're going to have downtime as a Feral. You get CC'd, or kited, or you have to run away and heal, etc. So that one is like third on the list. The first one that I like the most is Incarnation, which is a 3-minute cooldown, and this is once again different depending on the build you're in. For Ferals, number one, this is a buff that lasts for 30 seconds, and then as Feral, it improves your cat form that allows of all abilities which normally require stealth. You can use Prowl while in combat, and removes the positional requirement of Ravage. Now, this and Force of Nature are the 2 talents that most Ferals are using, and I'm going to break down why I pick this over Force of Nature. Incarnation is the same amount of cooldown length as our Berserk, and our Berserk reduces the cast of all cat form abilities by 50% and lasts for 15 seconds. So when I pop this, I can go ahead and Ravage the target over and over and over and over and over with no positional requirement or anything. Ravage is our hardest hitting move, so it's kind of a no-brainer right there for that, but at the same time, people don't understand certain perks about it. For starters, when you pop Incarnation, Ravage's spell readout is you have to be behind the target. You have to be behind the target to be able to Ravage the target. Right there, it's saying I don't because I've got my buff up. But if I go to Ravage, come on, there it is. Ravage the target, blah 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 blah. Must be prowling and behind the target. Okay, so number one, I don't have to be in prowl. Number two, I don't have to be behind the target. This is something that is often overlooked. By removing the positional requirement, the spell readout is still as if you're behind the target, though. So, those pesky rogues that want to pop evasion? All you do is laugh in their face, put a fairy fire on them, pop a Zerk, and just watch them drop. They cannot dodge your Ravage at all. They can't dodge it when you have Incarnation up. So what would normally look like is, let's just get 5 combo points, Purple Roar, Incarnation. Now see, I'm in front of the target. I still can go ahead and do all my spells. Just spamming Ravedge, 180k, 190k, no biggie. So, yeah. And that buff lasts for 15 more seconds. Right now, it's still up. Like when you get this cool looking like armor buff on you, that's when it's still up. This buff is still going. Still going. So this whole time, this rogue, I am doing Ravages into him where he can't dodge them. His defensives will not outlive my offensives, because I'm a Feral. So Incarnation is really good for that, but a lot of people have switched over in arenas especially to Force of Nature. The reason people use Force of Nature is because it's an AoE stun in a sense. For the Feral, it's a 20-second cooldown, they hold 3 charges, it's kind of like rolls on a monk. You roll, one gets used, and its timing gets cooldown back up. Same thing with Force of Nature. Force of Nature is 40-yard range, 20-second recharge, and then as Feral, when if I'm targeting this guy and I was to use Force of Nature, it's going to summon a little treant that's going to go up and do a little bit of damage, and then bash the target, meaning stun him like he's going to get bashed. So he's going to get stunned. Now this is what most people are using in Arena because of the simple fact that you could do it to a healer or a DPS is popping his cooldowns because it's a 40-yard range, like interrupt peel in a sense. Now, people might say, why would you want to lose all this damage, etc.? Because of the simple fact that Ferals have a high damage output as is, they don't necessarily need Incarnation as much as they would need Force of Nature. So this is a talent I would recommend at higher rating, like 23, 2200 plus at least. Because, especially if you're not fully geared. My tune has got full Tyrannical main set, but then I'm wearing Malevolent in other places. Like, I do not have full gear yet. So I'm not the max damage output. And that's why I enjoy Incarnation better right now. I have messed around with Force of Nature, and it is a strong spell, but I feel it's something that should be used once you're at a higher rating where it's going to be more beneficial to you. I often see a lot of Pharaohs running Force of Nature in Arena at like 1800 MMR, etc. And they lose because my burst window is much more of a threat than theirs is. Oh, you stunned me for 3 seconds. Ooh. You know, that can be devastating in the higher rankings because you can do it on a crucial spell, but a lot of people aren't playing with that high of a skill cap right now. It seems with this spell. But I am saying as an importance, Incarnation, Force of Nature, and then Soul of the Forest. So that's the order. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Next one we'll talk about is the kind of like our second form of CC chain, level 75 talents. First one we'll talk about is Disorienting Roar. Disorienting Roar is a 30-second cooldown. Yeah, let's go ahead and train that. And what this does is like, I kind of talk about like it's a blinding light for a paladin, and what it does is, you know, every 30-second cooldown, and then it disorient all enemies within 10 yards for 3 seconds. Any damage caused will remove the effect, usable in all shapeshift forms. This is a cool spell because, you know, it's exactly what it says. I would put up a roar, and oh look, he's disoriented, and so was that target for 3 seconds. And for only 30-second cooldown, that can be pretty crazy. Popping it when there's a lot of people grouped up, like, you know, when a priest will be like, oh, triple fear, triple fear. If I get a triple roar, that's pretty good. A good peel and a good offensive use as well. So Disorienting Roar is pretty strong, but I like Mighty Bash more. Mighty Bash is the one that I use most. And, like, as an order of importance, it's Mighty Bash, Disorienting Roar, and Ursul's Verdict. Vortex, I'm sorry, not Verdict. Waiting for it to come off cooldown. Okay. Now, Mighty Bash is a 50-second cooldown, invokes the Spirit of Ursak to stun the target for 5 seconds, usable in all shapeshift forms. So this is a stun that lasts for 5 seconds. It's pretty self-explanatory. But the reason that I really like this spell is because of the simple fact that I often am not going to be able to use main. Like, I would rather be able to pool my energy. Let's see if I got, let's say I got full bleeds up. I got my energy pooled. Go ahead and stun the target. And now just start shredding and ravaging on the target. I just did a huge damage burst in that stun. Because of the simple fact that maim requires energy, it kind of defeats the purpose of like you pooling the energy to then just drop the target. I like stunning my kill target and CCing him. Going over to healer when he's got Aura Mastery up and just going, oh hey, and bashing him, and then damaging the guy. Often you will probably kill the guy with a bash, but then on top of it, you might be able to finish your combo points and get Predatory Swiftness Cyclone into the healer. So that is something that you got to use it in practice and get used to using this. What you will hate though is when you're versing certain classes and you go to Mighty Bash and they parry them. Try to be behind the target to avoid that. Like dodges, parries, all that type of stuff. It's just such a good spell, though. So get used to like focus frames, be able to pay attention for the healer, go over and stun him, etc., stuff like that. So get used to using I'm sorry, not Ursak's Bash, but Mighty Bash, and Disorienting Roar. It depends on the comps. Like if there's a lot of like spellcasters, Mighty Bash might not be something I want to use compared to a Disorienting Roar, where I'll be able to like turn a corner and maybe catch one or two. Same thing where often against like Ret Hunter, Priest, and stuff like that, with a lot of Zerg damage up front in your face, during a disorienting or doing a disorienting roar to stop the Hunter after he like scatters your healer to interrupt his like trap like chain of events, you know, scatter, trapper, pet CC trap, etc. It can kind of like stop them in their tracks, and it is a 10-yard range. Mighty Bash, you have to be in melee, so this is something where pick your poison, etc. Most people use Mighty Bash because it is a longer CC, but Disorienting Roar does have its perks as well. Okay, that's the level 75 tier. Now the 90 tier. The 90 tier is a quite a lot of reading, but a really in-depth breakdown will make sure you understand them all. First one we're talking about, this is one I'm using, is Heart of the Wild. Instant 6-minute cooldown. When you have this talent, you flat out get an increase in stamina, agility, and intellect by 6% at all times. When activated, dramatically improves the druid's ability to perform roles outside their normal specialization for 45 seconds. Grants the following benefits based on current specialization. Now, what you might have automatically been like is, oh, okay, so feral. No, you have to read it and say that non-feral. Oh, so what are we? Non-restoration. So this is where its main purpose comes in. Healing is increased and mana cost of all healing spells reduced by 100%. Guardian Druids may also cast Rejuvenation while shapeshifted. Now, that is crazy strong for us. For how long this buff lasts, 45 seconds, I could do so much healing in that window. I will have 350k heals in arena, whatnot. So if I go ahead and just say, right there, that was a 260k heal, and now I came out in Trank. Number one, these spells aren't costing me mana, and my Trank is healing for 67k. Like, it's so strong. It's so ridiculously strong. And another thing is, putting up Rejuve right there, 30k, 30k. Every time you cast Rejuve, it puts up a 30k number one heal, and then the hot. So if you're running and you need to keep yourself up, just spamming Rejuve on yourself or your partners is an easy way to do it. Plus, it's free mana. I still have 15 more seconds where I could just be spam healing. Oftentimes, if my healer gets locked out, I will healing touch spam my partners. You know, you get 2 or 3 of them off, like, oh, 136k heal, 138k heal. And number one, that's a lot of healing. Number two, it's no mana cost to you. So right there, I just casted a bunch of like 136k healing touches. If they crits, it crits really hard too. So that is like your big oh no cooldown. Like on a heal, etc. You heal your partners, anything. This is amazing. Now that's why how strong of a cooldown is, hence why it's such a long cooldown. 6 minutes is a little bit lengthy in arenas. I try and save this spell as long as possible because once it's popped, I really don't have as much power as a peeler. Like, yeah, I got CC, which is great and all, but sometimes you just need to out-heal the damage. When a rep pops his wings, you know, and he's immune to CC or whatnot, you need to out-heal the damage just for a second and then hopefully Typhoon him away from whoever he's on, whether it's you, healer, or your other DPS and 3s. So that's Heart of the Wild. Macros, when I make the macro portion of the video, I'll have a lot of macros that'll probably be useful for you guys, and including a Heart of the Wild one. So be on the lookout for that in the next couple days. Next talent is Dream of Cenarius, which doesn't really have an effect for us, but I'll read it anyways. Wrath, Starfire, Star Surge, and melee abilities increase healing done by your next healing spell by 30%. Trank is not affected. Nourish, Healing Touch, and Regrowth increase the damage done by your next 2 Moonfire or Sunfire casts by 50%, or your next 2 melee abilities by 25%. Each of these bonuses lasts 30 seconds. It's kind of cool, but you're not necessarily going to be coming out to heal a lot as Feral, or not consistently enough to keep this buff up long enough. The fact of the matter is, we go ridiculously fast when healing. Like right now, let's just say I was to do Healing Touch, Rejuve, and if my partner's not capped, I've already burnt half my mana pool. 1 more Healing Touch, and that's it. So 3 Healing Touches and a Rejuve, and I'm completely So that's where Heart of the Wild is one of the stronger ones for us because of the fact that 45 seconds of free mana cost on heals. So Dream of Cenarius, maybe you could, like, for raiding possibly, but I still would put Nature's Vigil over that. Nature's Vigil is a 1.5 minute cooldown, instant cast, that increases all damage and healing done by 10% for 30 seconds. While active, all single target healing spells also damage a nearby enemy target for 25% of the healing done. And all single target damage spells and abilities also heal a nearby friendly target for 25% of damage done. So I would put this as probably the best to use for raiding because it's a minute and a half cooldown, and it's a buff that lasts for 30 seconds for 10% more damage. So as a Feral is DPSing or Boomkin, I think this might be the best one to use because it's the most damage as in PvE aspect. But as in PvP, Heart of the Wild is king. I haven't seen any people using anything in place of it because how much it brings to the table is just too good to pass up for PvP situations. So yeah. Guys, that's going to be covering the talents, and I'm going to talk about a couple things for this series that if you have questions, etc. at the end of the video, so please stick around to there. See you in the next bit. Alright guys, now that's going to wrap up this vid. Real quick before I let you go, just a couple things. First off, I know this was a long video and there was a lot of information talked about. If you felt I may have missed something or you had some questions that might not have been answered in the vid, please comment below and let me know, or send me a message on in-game or on YouTube, etc. Like, I have no problem reading those and responding as soon as possible. That's covering that part. The next part of the videos, like the glyphs, gear, gemming, and all that stuff, will be coming out in the next few days, so you can be on the lookout for those. Also, streaming. I am streaming a lot more. I've done a 24-hour stream event with Raj where we were leveling alt tunes, like his actual first US tune to 80. I think we went to 81 together pretty quickly, It was around like 16 hours gameplay. So a lot of people have been in there and stopped by the stream, and hopefully you guys can stop by too and say hi. So streaming, and also I have now officially switched over to making a Twitter account. So I will be putting out updates about vids I'm making, when I'm streaming, what's going on during stream, possible giveaways, etc. So if you do want to follow the Twitter, it's going to be down below. I'll put a link for that as well. So just a couple like little updates with that. And then, of course, lastly, if you did enjoy what you saw here, please like, fave, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. And this is Ravedge, aka Bloodsorrow, saying thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the BGs.